What's up, guys? Welcome to the Racing Roundtable. Back again after like 3-4 years. My first video in quite a long time. Don't count on it being regular, but yeah, here I am with a very sporadic upload. Today's topic is about Aston Martin and Honda because testing, obviously, as you all know, has just wrapped up and things ain't looking good for them at all. So the question I'm posing today is Aston Martin cooked for 2026? So we've got Aston Martin basically becoming a full works team for the first time. And I think even in its previous forms, so as like Force India, you could say Racing Point, I don't think they've ever been a full works team. So, or maybe actually it used to be Jordan. So I think Jordan was a works team at some point, maybe, or at least had like an exclusive engine or something like that. But this is basically the first time this team has been a works team in decades, if ever. This is like sort of hallowed ground for them. Like, you're a full works team, you have influence over everything. So you have an engine supplier who will work with you, make sure the engine is catered to your basically aerodynamic needs and whatever else. And then you get to just focus on making sure everything is, everything's in sync, everything is synergized or in synergy. I don't know if synergize is an actual word, but anyway, things were looking up for these guys. And, they did this whole massive presentation just before the first Bahrain test. You've got Lance Stroll, been in F1 for like 10 years now. Has he achieved much? A few podiums. I personally think he's a bang average driver. If he was at another team, I think he would have been kicked by now. The only reason he would have still been here is because Lawrence Stroll is rich. I personally think he's average. He ain't gonna take you to the next level. He's not on Alonso's level, either historically or now. So, and Alonso's like 44, 45. Speaking of Alonso, he's now in his mid-40s. He hasn't got much time left. He ain't gonna be moving to a big team. You Alonso fans, that's just reality. This is basically going to be his last seat in F1, unless there's a massive twist, which I highly doubt. So he can't afford for Aston Martin and Honda to be messing about, but it looks like that's the case, So they did this massive presentation, hyping up the partnership, this new era of Aston Martin in this new era of Formula One. They've spent hundreds of millions of pounds, new campus, new facilities, new wind tunnel, new simulator, having this partnership with Honda. But it looks like it's going to start off on a disaster. And you could say there's a common denominator here, which is Honda. Honda is the common denominator here. So as we all know, if you were watching F1 back in the day, but in 2015, Honda rejoined. They returned to F1. I'm pretty sure the engine deal with McLaren was announced in like 2013, because Ron Dennis believed that in this era of Formula One with the turbo hybrids, the MGUH, MGUK, all that, he believed that you couldn't win a championship as a customer. He said, you know what, we need to partner with another engine supplier and try and win this thing. And he came up with Honda. He managed to persuade them to return. They returned, I think, a year earlier than they wanted to because Ron Dennis was so eager to, get this partnership rolling. And we could see the evidence, 2015 was a disaster. They had like a mule car that they barely got anything done with that car, trying to test the engine. Preseason happened, didn't really do much. Then Alonso had that freak accident, which I still don't really know why that accident happened, but it happened. 2016 was a bit better. 2017, I think they went the Mercedes engine layout philosophy sort of thing. And they basically went back to square one, having issues. Alonso saying the engine feels much better, much slower than before, all that stuff. GP2 engine, all of that stuff. And then McLaren had enough at that point, and then they went to Renault. Then they went back to Mercedes, and here we are now. Double world champions and all that. We fast forward to 2026? Or you could even say 2023 actually, when Aston Martin announced that they were going to be partnering with Honda and they'd become a full works team. Honda, prior to that announcement, decided they were leaving Formula One. And the interesting thing is, the engine regulations were being discussed. They're like the ones we have now. They were being discussed around that time, or at least since 2022. And they were part of the discussions the whole time, I'm pretty sure. So it's interesting that they decided to leave Formula One, announce their departure, let their staff go to different departments or get poached by other teams, and then you decide, hold on, you know what, we're gonna stay. We're gonna stay. And obviously Red Bull at that point had to, they had to move on because you're losing your engine supplier. What do you want to do? Mercedes will definitely not supply you. Ferrari will definitely not supply you. You don't want to go back to Renault. So the only real option you have is to make your own engine. And that's what they did. And I'll come back to that later on. But the thing is, Honda being indecisive, deciding to leave, then coming back, and then having to start from scratch because you only need a team big enough to maintain the engines that Red Bull were using until last year. So you don't have a team actively working on R&D, on testing and any sort of engine concepts or anything like that. And you're now starting from scratch with a new team. Expectations are high, and we start off with a pre-season that has Aston Martin breaking down. I don't think they even managed to do maybe 30 plus laps consecutively. And on the last day of testing, of the second test, they only did a few in laps and out laps. They didn't have enough parts. So it's like Honda are holding back Aston Martin. But then again, Aston Martin themselves are behind as well because Newey joined sometime last year and their wind tunnel was a bit delayed. So they really started developing the car around April. And I think according to the BBC, Newey wanted to start the car development from scratch. So the team already had some sort of car designed or early beginnings of a car. But Newey, as soon as he was able to officially start, he decided he wanted to start from scratch and, have his own input on it from the start. So they're, again, maybe 3-4 months behind now, just on car design alone. So this is like a baby version, an early version of what they should have had at this stage. Because you've got Ferrari who have a plan of having a Spec A, then introducing parts, allowing themselves wiggle room in case maybe one development avenue isn't good enough so they can switch and be a bit adaptable. You've got Mercedes who look like the favourites. You've got Red Bull again who seem like they have a decent car. Audi started with like a Spec A as well, and then they brought in their Spec B with the side pods and everything. Whereas Aston Martin have basically a sort of early version, a prototype of the F1 car running right now with an engine that doesn't seem to be able to work for 5 minutes. So my question to you guys is, are Aston Martin cooked? Because based on testing, it's not looking good. Every single team had a better preseason than Aston Martin by far. Cadillac, brand new team from scratch, had a much more productive preseason and seemed like they might be able to challenge Aston Martin to avoid being in last place. And at this rate, you could even argue Aston Martin are not even going to finish the race because their engine cannot last 2-3 laps at full speed without it breaking down, conking out on the drivers. So on the engine side, it's going to be very difficult to catch up to, let's say, Mercedes, because Mercedes seem to have the best power unit. Red Bull from scratch. Red Bull powertrains, you could say Ford a little bit, but it's mainly Red Bull, I think. They managed to create an engine division from scratch based on on Honda leaving. They may have poached some Honda employees as well. Okay, cool, but they still had to start from scratch. New regulations and all that. They've managed to have a pretty much, I think engine-wise, flawless pre-season test. 2 tests or 3 tests. Whereas Aston Martin were late number 1 to the shakedown. And then in Bahrain, they just couldn't do anything. So Red Bull from scratch, you could even say Audi from scratch, have been able to produce power units that seem to be capable and competent. Honda, who have the World Championship winning engines from 2021 up to 2025, or 2024, sorry, cannot seem to be able to create an engine. This partnership already is McLaren 2015 all over again. So I want to know who's to blame for this. Is it Honda? Is it Aston Martin? Is it Adrian Newey? Could you say? Because again, being a works team means you can influence how the engine is, like the form of the engine. So you could say, like McLaren did in 2015, we want a size 0 car. We're going for a size 0 concept. So we need the engine to be as tight and small as possible. And that created issues for Honda. So whatever demands Adrian Newey has put on Honda around his idea of how this car should be may also be negatively impacting the power unit. And as it's a works team, you can't really say, well, it's Honda's fault. Like you're basically one team. You've got two hearts, one head. If that makes sense. That might not make sense, but you get my idea. You're working together as one to win. You're not a customer, so you can't say, oh, we bought these engines are no good, like Red Bull were doing with Renault, which it was true. The engines were not good. You're working in partnership with Honda. They only supply you. For me, I would say the blame would be mostly with Honda, simply because they decided to leave, then come back after letting pretty much all the personnel go, starting from scratch. And obviously and evidently, that has not worked out big time. And it's embarrassing for Honda again, because it's basically Groundhog Day. 2015 and 2017 is happening again in 2026 with a new team. It's like parallels. And on the Aston Martin side, you've got a car which basically had to be restarted because Adrian Newey wanted his sort of imprint from the very beginning, allegedly. You've got this aggressive car, and just because it's aggressive and looks innovative doesn't mean it's going to work. Look at the McLaren MP418. That car, they couldn't get it to work. It would overheat. It was adventurous, but maybe a bit too ahead of its time. That could be the case here, simply. And even in testing, actually, I think the drivers had issues with the cars. Their drivability wasn't great. You've got Lance Stroll here locking up. So yeah, it's looking peak right now for Aston Martin. So you've got a car which doesn't seem to be fast. The drivers are struggling with the balance. And then you've got a power unit which is, you could say, underdeveloped, underpowered. They have no idea how not bad this car will be in a race. They have no idea if they can even start a race, let alone finish it. You've got an engine where you don't know how to manage the electrical side of things. All the other teams know, because they've been able to run a lot, lap after lap after lap. So they've been able to learn and understand, okay, we need to save energy here. We need to do this to save energy. We deploy it here for this long or whatever. Fine tune the software and all that. These guys have no clue. They're going in blind. Yeah, it's looking peak for these guys, man. It's looking peak. So let me know your thoughts. Do you think Aston Martin are cooked for 2026? Do you think it's Honda's fault? Do you think it's Aston Martin's fault? Because it's definitely both of their faults here. It's just a matter of who gets the blame, or more of the blame. And do you think they'll be able to fix these issues? Because I think it's mostly on the engine side that the fault lies with. Let's say 55% to Honda, 45% to Aston Martin. Because without being able to run, they don't know how they can improve this car. Because they know the car isn't where they want it to be. So without being able to run, they can't improve it. And then a power unit that's developed, underpowered, the car's not gonna go anywhere. So I'm even gonna say this: Cadillac may even beat Aston Martin in the Australian Grand Prix. I genuinely think so. I genuinely think Cadillac, at least one of their cars, could beat Aston Martin. That's if they even finish. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. Thank you for watching. Let me know your thoughts about this video. It's been a while, so I'm a bit rusty. Might have been waffling a little bit. Do you think Aston Martin are cooked? Do you think the blame should lie with Honda? Do you think it should lie with Aston Martin, or do you think it's a mix of both? Which, in my opinion, it is a mix of both. Do you see them rectifying this before the end of the season? And one last question: is Fernando Alonso gonna stay with the team and give them one last chance next year if things don't work out this year? Do you think Alonso will stay, or do you think he will be like, you know what, I've been through this episode before, I can spend my time doing things more productive than this? You know what, I'm out, I'm gonna retire, it's done. There's no need to go through this suffering again with Honda. Do you think that will happen, or do you think that he will stay another year? Because I think his contract runs out this year, so it'll be interesting to see if he renews his contract at least 1 year. As for Lance Stroll, we know he's daddy's boy, so he ain't ever leaving unless his dad either sells the team or he has had enough of Formula One. So he's guaranteed a seat. So we know he's staying. But is Alonso going to stay? Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video, whenever that is. Goodbye.